So the children of Noach that exited the ark were Shem, Chom, V'Yafes, 3 sons. The Chom will be Canaan, and Chom is the father of Canaan. Why the Torah mentions that? Believe that. Shloisha Eila b'nei Noach. These are the 3 sons of Noach. And from here, the whole world spread and was repopulated. Next pasuk, Vayochel Noach Isha Adama. Rashi explains Yochel comes from the word Chulin, which means non-sacred or profane. So he was coming, in other words, from the ark, from the Teva. He was doing holy work, saving the world and providing all of creation with its needs. He descends from that state. And what does he do? The man of the earth, Vayita Koram, he plants a vineyard. Now, sages are critical. The first thing you should have planted are staples, wheat, and so on. But we can understand him, cooked up for a year. In the Teva, he was ready for a good drink. All right? So he plants a vineyard. Vayesh ben hayayin vayishkar, he drinks of the wine, he becomes intoxicated. Vayizgal b'seichol, he becomes exposed in his tent. Vayar Chom avi Canaan is erevas aviv, and Chom, the father of Canaan, sees his father's nakedness. Vayagid l'shnei echa b'chutz, he relates it to his 2 brothers outside. Vayikach Shem vayefes es hasimla, and Shem and Yefes, the other 2 brothers, take a garment or a cloak, like a blanket. V'yasimu al Shechem shnehem, and they placed it on their shoulders, right, behind them. Vayelchu acharanis, they walk backwards into the tent. Vayechasu es erves avim, and they drop it and cover their father's nakedness. Ufneim acharanis, their faces are facing away from him. Their faces are facing towards the tent, the opening of the tent. The erves avim lero, they didn't see their father's nakedness. And the Torah goes on to describe, he wakes up, he realizes what Chom had done to him, and he curses Chom to be a slave. He blesses Yefes, the father of Greece, the founder of Greece, with beauty, and he blesses Shem, of course, the father of Avraham. That's what we call Semites, because we're descendants of Shem. That's the basic story. Now, I want to go into a little bit of detail, but first I want to share with you a fascinating medrash, which you may know. So I'll read it to you exactly as the medrash says. When the medrash says, as Noach was about to plant the vine, Satan appeared. Do you want me to become a partner with you in making this wine grow? Asks the Satan. Yes, replies Noach. This is all symbolic. Satan left and returned with a little lamb in his arm. He shechts the lamb, holds it over the wine, fertilizes it. Comes back a second time with a lion. He kills the lion, saturated the vine with its blood. Then the Satan now comes back with the monkey, likewise slaughtered it and poured its blood over the vine. Finally, he comes with a davar acher, a swine, and kills it, and staining the earth under the vine with its blood. What our sages say? This is the result of excessive drinking. The first cup of wine becomes like a lamb, docile and peaceful. Second cup of wine, like a lion, he's aggressive, he's talkative, boastful of his achievements, whatever it is. Third cup, he's dancing like a monkey, makes a fool of himself. And after 4 cups, he ends up rolling in his own waste, like the pig in the pigsty. So it's a hint to what happens if we go too far. Now, just I'm going to go into it now. Why would Noach have agreed for Satan to be his partner in the first place? Noach was a tzaddik. No matter how you cut it, he was a tzaddik. So because Noach understood that it's a good thing, and he wants to transform it and use it for kedusha. He failed. But in essence, wine and so on, it's used in the Mizbeach, it's used Shabbos and Yom Tov. He wanted to elevate it. But there's a process to do that, and he was too quick, too early. And he ended up being disgraced by it. Now I want to zero back into our story. Here's our question, the question of the day. Pasuk number Chav Gimel. So let's read it again, just in the translation. So Shem and Yefes take the garment, they put it on their shoulders, they walk backwards, they cover their father's nakedness, and their face is facing away from him. Now I'm asking you, so do they see their father naked or not? No, that's why they walked in backwards, and it's very clear from the description of what they did that they didn't see. It's on their shoulders, they're walking backwards, and they keep their face away from the father, looking towards the entrance. Why then does the Torah add, and the nakedness of their father they didn't see, when that's patently obvious? That's what is just being described. What's being added? Here's the answer, friends. It's a very challenging answer. The famous Sefer Moirei Nayim that Nussi was quoting the other night, Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov, so he quotes the founder of the Chernobyl dynasty and many other Hasidic dynasties, most of them, in fact. So he quotes a teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. It's a very challenging teaching. The Baal Shem Tov says like this. Before I tell you the teaching, some background, the basis of this vort. Hashem observes his own laws. Unlike, it's a famous medrash, unlike a mortal king, he issues edicts, but he's above the law. Hashem respects his own halach, his own mitzvahs, his own dinim. Hashem tells us not to speak lashon hara. Why then would God arrange his world such that many times you weren't looking for it, you saw a failing, or you heard about a failing in somebody else? Hashem is speaking lashon hara. He's arranged it, right, and made me see a failing in another Jew. How could this be? Said the Baal Shem Tov. Because you have the same failing. I have the same failing, but my self-love blinds me to it. So Hashem makes me see it in somebody else. The reason, it's a mirror, because I have that failing in me, and I've got to fix it. And I've been blind to it. So Kavayochel, Hashem has no other way to get the message to me than to show it in somebody else. In the words of the Baal Shem Tov, it's a mirror. If you see a failing in somebody else, whatever it is, it means you have it and fix it in yourself. That's the Baal Shem Tov's hard-hitting teaching. So our Rebbe asks, of course, that's definitely a possibility, but surely it's possible. Surely it's possible. If you see a failing in somebody else, doesn't mean that you have it. Tzaddikim see the failings in others. Does it mean they have it within themselves? Maybe it's, I see that in order to fix it. That's why I'm seeing it. It's not a mirror. It's a message from heaven indeed, but the message is not to me, to fix it within me. The message is that I should point it out to this person and help. So why is the Baal Shem Tov insisting that if you see a shortcoming in your fellow, it's a mirror? So the Rebbe answers like this. The Baal Shem Tov is talking about the following scenario, and here is the very, it's a litmus test that it's fail-proof and you can't delude yourself. Namely, it depends what my initial reaction is when I heard about this or see this. If my reaction is, that person, disgusting, if it's revulsion, if it's criticism, then it's a clear proof that I have it. And that's why I'm reacting that way. It stirs me because I have that same thing. And on some level, it boosts my low self-esteem. I'm not the only one. He's got it and he's got it worse. And it's a deflection from my own flaw, my own failing. So again, if the reaction is a negative one, it's a clear sign from heaven. Do your own homework. don't try and help him, because you'll not even be successful. The other person will get his defenses up, and it'll just bring to friction, because you have dismissed him. Why is it, friends, that we all resist criticism? Someone tells me something, I know it's true. So I know it's true anyway. So just because you said it, so I get all bent out of shape. And why do I get upset? The main reason is because usually people criticize, they're dismissing me totally. In totality, you are worth nothing. That's something that we cannot bear. But if the criticism was, now listen to the next scenario. If I see the chsar in somebody else, the failing, I heard about it, I saw it, and the reaction is, how can I help? I'm not focusing on the flaw. I'm focusing on the person out of love. How can I help? Then you should. Then that's why you heard it. And you'll be effective in helping that person, because the person feels the love, not the dismissal, and they feel that the only reason you're even saying anything is because you love them, because of their essential and infinite value. That's why you're helping them. The criticism is really, the main part of it is because of your value. It's kind of like, not the same kind of thing, but similar to, the beautiful story. I think I once told you the story. Rabbi Twersky, Oliver Shalom, the famous psychologist, wrote many, many books, who lived in Boston. He wrote many books, and it's all worth reading. A psychologist, he founded a rehabilitation, I'm talking about, Rabbi Twersky. He spoke in Montreal here. Wonderful, wonderful man. So he relates a story that very, very briefly was Rosh Hashanah. As a kid, he grew up in Milwaukee in his father's house. So anyway, they had a guest, a long story. As a kid, so he played chess in Rosh Hashanah. I'm actually mixing two stories, but that's the same kind of message. So the father said to him, playing chess, Rosh Hashanah, his eyebrows. That's all he had to do. And he said, I was mortified. And my father smiled and said, did you win at least? Affirming the unconditional love. But a similar story, he said, his father always would criticize with these words, as pastnish. In Yiddish, it means, this is not worthy of your behavior. That's a criticism that at the same time affirms the value. You're better than this. You're better than this. That kind of criticism we can accept. If it doesn't dismiss my value, but affirms my value. So to fine tune it in our case over here, when do you criticize? When is it my role to step in and say something? If my reaction is purely and only one of love, and how can I help Gival Rachmanas in the person? How do I lift him up? But if my reaction is just criticism, then it's a message to me. And that the Rebbe explains is what the Pasuk is saying over here. First, the Pasuk describes physically how Shem and Cham walked in, how Shem and Yefes walked in contrast to Cham. So Shem and Cham walked in, the Pasuk describes physically, they walked in backwards. Obviously, we know that they didn't see their father's nakedness. What's the Pasuk adding at the end? The Ereves Avim Leiro. That's not describing the physical part. It's the attitude. They did not focus on their father's nakedness. That's what the Pasuk is saying at the end. The first part of the Pasuk is describing what they did physically. And then the Pasuk is explaining what prompts all of this, their attitude. That's not what my father's made a disgrace of himself. That's not what they think. They didn't see that. They're not thinking that. They're thinking one thing. How do we help? Whereas Cham, the younger brother, walked in and saw the father disgraced. And I don't want to go into detail, but he wasn't just naked. They saw that he was in an physically agitated state, that he wanted to have more children, etc. Rashi says he castrated him and he sodomized him. Our sages say, more children. Noach had 2 kids and destroyed the world. We're 3, you want to have more kids. I mean, complete revulsion, the old fool, disgracing himself, and he's still horrible. That's what he saw. He came out and told his brothers with embarrassment their father is an old fool and a drunk, and look what he's still, what he wants. That's what he saw. They didn't hear that. They didn't see that. What? Fix. That's all. That's how you help. That's how you help. So that's we can't delude ourselves, friends, because it's the first reaction. It happens all the time. We hear Lashon Hara. We didn't ask for it. We hear or we see something. So why is Hashem doing this? Well, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see the person's fault. But I did. So you have to look at, how did I react? Did I react? That guy. Oh, if that's the reaction, homework. If the reaction was, how can I help? Then help him. And it's black and white. It's a litmus test of where I'm standing. Having said all of this, there's another layer, a little bit of another layer to this. Even when, a new layer, even when it's clear that I saw or heard this to help, even then, I've got to go inwards. Let me tell you a story. It's a story with the Mittler Rebbe, second Rebbe of Chabad. Long story, bottom line of the story is this. He once interrupted Yechidus, receiving people, like for a day, 2 days, secluded in his room, fasting. And the Chassidim were distraught. They didn't know what is going on. The Rebbe says he's not seeing anybody anymore. People were waiting. He was actually, he was traveling, he was in a certain city, and people came finally after, and they heard crying outside the room, fasting. You can imagine how the Chassidim were in a state of distraught. Finally, after a day and a half or 2 days, he said that they should continue coming in, and he received people in private audience. Later he explained, he said like this: when a Yid comes to me to ask for a tikkun, to fix a spiritual failing, in order to help him, I've got to find it in myself. Fix it in me, then I can fix it in him. This is even when, this is the higher level, because everything is relative. Ein tzaddik ba'aretz asher ya'aseh tov le'yachta. There's no tzaddik in the world, it's only good and doesn't sin. Now the word sin doesn't mean do a transgression. Chet, the word chet doesn't mean that. Chet means to miss the mark. That's what the word chet means. As there's a pasuk about an arrow, he gets it on the hair and doesn't miss it. Because in holiness, it's endless. There's always higher and higher. So a chet for a tzaddik means, could be in a higher level, and he didn't get it. That's the chet for the tzaddik, not actual transgression. So he says, in order to help another Jew, I have to fix it first in me. I have to empathize, in other words. I got to find it in me, fix it in me, and then I can give, the solution, the advice, and the blessing, etc. So he said that someone came to me with a failing. I had to toil to find it, and I was distraught because I for sure have it, because Hashgacha Pratis, this person is coming to me. So I'm not honest with myself. And he toiled until he found, who knows what level, that he found in himself this lack. And then he worked to fix it, and then I answered. So we're saying now that even when the response is love, and even when the response is not, building my self-esteem, over this guy, looking down on him, and all I'm like shame and yefes, all I'm thinking is that even then, to be an effective guide or mentor or teacher or parent, and whatever I'm demanding of fixing in my children, I've got to work on that on myself. On a very subtle level could be, but I got to work on myself. And only then will I be effective. Because only then will I really have the proper words and proper language and proper empathy And also the child will feel it. You're not just a holy person giving me instructions. You're with me, you're toiling with me. That gives the recipient the encouragement to work on their problems well. On so many levels, it's effective. It's a big challenge because we're all parents. We're all, making demands on all kinds of levels of people, whatever it is. Here's what true leadership means. You've got to be part of the process. You've got to work on yourself. And only then can you be effective. We've got a few minutes, and I'm going to tell you a story similar, related to all of this. One of my favorite stories. There was a famous chassid in Chabad. His name was Mendel Futterfass. Just show you a picture of him, which I had the merit of sitting in his Fabrengens. And he was 17 years in Siberia in the Gulag. Came out of Russia in the 60s. I'll show you a picture of him to give it an idea. Just look at his face. It's already enough. But Mendel Futterfass, just get him up here. Mendel. Here it comes up right away.
I'm excited to see the face. I've heard the name for years.
Pardon?
I've heard his name for years, and I've never seen a picture.
Here's a picture of him. That's of Mendel. Another picture. That's a passport picture, I think. Wonderful, wonderful man in his later years, Mamash, and you can see that's a bad glare. Oh, this is in Montreal at a Simcha Fabrengen. And if you can see, the glare is not good there. They close the glare. Close this, probably see it better. I don't know. Actually, Montreal at a Simcha, at a Bar Mitzvah afterwards. So here's the story with him. So Rav Mendel, he was arrested. Well, one of his two big crimes. Number one, he was involved in the whole underground, the Lubavitch underground in Russia, funding it and so on and so forth, paying for the teachers their meager salary. And number two, maybe number one, after the war, the Russian government allowed Polish citizens who had fled into the interior of Russia to go back home. That's how my mother and my grandparents and all the Lubavitches, that his mother, everybody, all got out of Russia after the war. Was Nebuch, Polish Jews that were murdered. So they were able to somehow get their passports, their names, and change doctor and change the picture. They went out on these Polish passports. It was fraught with danger, a lot of bribery, and then the Russian government caught on. I mean, if you didn't speak Polish, you were finished, and there were kids. You ask a kid, but that's how many got out. Now, Rav Mendel was very involved in this whole illegal operation. And it's one of the reasons that he was arrested. And the second one, which is first, which is second, is because of his keeping Yiddishkeit alive. So 17 years was in various gulags. Finally, his sentence was over and he was in Gorky. That's where he was, in Gorky. And from there, eventually in the mid-60s, he got out.
Interesting. So
in Gorky, there was a handful of chassidim. One of them, Lucy's, Ichi's father-in-law, but he already left Gorky, but that's where he was from, Gorky. Anyway, so one day, it's the middle of a weekday, the Mendel tells one of the kids, the Lubavitch kid, his name is Vyshetsky. He's a mashpia in Chabad. He says, tell the Chevra, Fabrengen tonight. Fabrengen tonight. It wasn't a special day. Mendel calls it Fabrengen. Okay. So they got together, 5 or 6, I don't know how many they were, at someone's house. Mashke, whatever they had there. He actually said, what was the food they ate? It was a kind of a porridge. That's all they had. But it was mashke and a porridge. This was the whole thing. The Mendel's Fabrengen, beautifully inspiring. They're all like wondering, what's the occasion? Asking him, he's not saying. Another Lachaim, the Fabrengen continues. It's after midnight. And Mendel, keep on like, see, this is what he finally says. He says, during my interrogations, the hands of the communists was called The White Nights, the famous book that Menachem Begin wrote called White Night, because under the glare of the naked light bulb at night, exhausted, they'd hammer you and hammer you. Menachem Begin was imprisoned by the Russians. She said, I remembered one thing. The Rebbe Rashab said that the previous Rebbe's father, he says, Klipper, evil, says the truth. And the deeper the evil, the more the truth. Distorted, but true. In parentheses, I just want to add to this, the biggest evil, Hitler, Yamach Shema. The biggest evil. What did Hitler say? A Jew is not a human being. A Jew is not part of it. He's a parasite, he's a cancer, he's otherworldly, because distorted. But he bemis, yeah, a Yid as a neshama, part of the Eibishter, and we're not part of the sea. We share our humanity in common with humanity, but the essence of the Jew is forever the foreigner, forever the alien. That's the truth. And he exposed it, that a Jew is a Jew is a Jew, whether he keeps mitzvahs or not keeps mitzvahs, in the most distorted, evil way. He exposed the depth of what a Yid is, and so much so that every effort's worth to find one Jew hiding in an attic. He's losing the war on the Russian front, and he's sending soldiers and ammunition and manpower to find Nebuch Jews hiding in haystacks. And this crazy obsession with the Jew, the distortion. Jonathan Sacks famously said, what drove the Rebbe? He said, the Rebbe was the answer to the Holocaust, the insane obsession with one single Jew. No matter whom, what, in hate, we're going to find him in love. That's how Jonathan Sacks famously explained what drove the Rebbe. And Hitler, exposed this deep truth that a Yid is a Yid is a Yid. And the whole, it's worth everything to go find one of them. And back to Rav Mendel. So Rav Mendel says, they would try and like really demoralize him. They would tell him, "Met futterfass, you make yourself like this holy Jew. You're an adulterer, and you're a thief, and you're a murderer." Abuse heap on him, and he would think to himself, "Right? He'd go back to his cell. They think they broke him, and he's using all of this to work on himself. He's actually becoming more refined." He didn't say these words. He's becoming edel and more refined, because everything he hears on a subtle level, yeah, he's an adulterer, yeah, he's human, yeah, and a murderer who didn't think I want to kill the person, and who didn't think I want to take everything they said to him, and they were psychological abuse. It was actually making him stronger and working on himself. So I'm telling you this story. He said, there's one thing they said to me I couldn't find. What did they say to him? This was their biggest thing. Futterfass, the big hero of the Lubavitcher Chassidim. He says, you could have gotten out on those trains with a false passport. Of course you could have. Now he stayed behind because to make for others. He stayed till it was impossible. But they said, you know why you stayed? Because you're the Rebbe. Because now you're the big tzaddik, and you get all the adoration of all the chassidim. They come to ask you. It's all an ego trip. That's why you stayed behind. Not sacrifice. That you didn't go because you gave the last passport to the last Jew, which could have been my mother, who knows, my grandparents. So he said, Klipper says the truth. I couldn't find it. And I was working ever since, finding myself that they're right. And today I found it. Oh, I caught myself. Mendel, Adosidas. So he says, that's why he called it Fabrengen. Now I can be honest with myself. Now the work can really begin. That's the reason he called it Fabrengen to share not so much the story, but to kind of celebrate that now he can start real work, because he obviously was dishonest with himself till now. If he couldn't find the truth of that accusation, and of course, sitting with Chassidim and Fabrengen and say L'chaim, that was part of his own avodah in cleansing, etc. Beautiful story. Of course, he never revealed. We wouldn't even understand probably what it was that he found in himself. Or maybe he did, but the kid who was there, this Vyshetsky, He was like 12 years old. He tells us the story. He's now maybe he didn't remember, but with that part of the story, we don't know. What was it? But that's not important. What's important is this is a chassid. This is a chassid. This is whatever you hear and see. It's divine providence. You have to work on yourself, even if it's, never mind the lashon hara about another Jew. Klippa tells you, on the contrary, the bigger the klippa, the more raw and distorted the truth is. So everything is divine providence. Everything is there. Hashem wants us to get closer to Him, to work on ourselves. And that is the most joyful way to live. Rav Mendel was always with a smile, always with simcha, because all of life was, he felt the divine providence, the connection, and it's all about the work, the endless work that Hashem wants from us to be ever closer to Him. Yidden, have a wonderful day.
Rabbi,
I'm going to Yisrael, Baruch Hashem, on Sunday. We're going for my niece's wedding. We got the good news. So next week, no shir, but God willing, the week after that.
Sure. Rabbi, just quickly, is this connected in any way to what you're saying with the Satan being Noach inviting the Satan to Noach inviting the Satan to grow the vines?
Yeah. What are you asking?
No, I don't think you've answered the question about why Noach invited.
Because he wanted to elevate it. He wanted to elevate it and use it in Kedusha.
To what the Satans.
He wanted to elevate, transform, but it was way too early. A lot of work to be done before he could transform the Satan. We're still working on it. He just wanted to get it done over and done with right away. But if you try something too high, too quick, you fall very fast.
Maybe because the Klippa says the truth. Wanted to hear the truth too.
Yeah.
Very nice. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbos.
Shabbos.